Greetings, Training for Translators listeners. This is Corinne McKay with episode 24 of the Training for Translators podcast. My goal is to do the podcast once a month, and I'm sneaking this in on the next to last day of March 2026. And if you're listening to this, thanks so much for helping to push the Training for Translators podcast above 10,000 downloads of all time. I'm excited about that. So here we go with this month's episode, which is based on a blog post that appeared on my blog on March 24th, 2026. If you'd like to read this instead as a blog post, just hop over to trainingfortranslators.com, click the blog link, and there in the sidebar, you will see the title of this episode, Can't Clients Just Do This Themselves with AI? Now, this is something that I have been hearing from a lot of students and colleagues lately. This idea of I try to motivate myself to market my freelance business, but then I think, couldn't clients just do this themselves for free with AI? It's a very common fear, and I will admit that I don't share this fear, which makes me either the best or the worst person to talk about it. You can tell me later what you think. So, this idea of how do I market my translation services without feeling like I am trying to sell something that clients could get for free? Here are two things that I have heard from a lot of students and colleagues lately. Number one, marketing these days just feels dishonest, as if I'm hoping that clients don't know that they could just use DeepL. Number two, good enough is good enough for most clients. They're totally happy with an AI translation and will not pay for a professional translator, especially an expensive one. I added that in myself. Here's what about that is not incorrect. Just as with any other professional service, there are some clients that are going to be happy with good enough. And what I would say, and I don't mean this to sound sarcastic or flippant, I really believe this. Let them go ahead with their tolerance for mediocrity while you carry on looking for clients who value excellence, service, and trust. And it is also true that for straightforward information in common language combinations, AI does a decent job of just conveying the information. Again, that isn't what you're selling. What you are selling is a really well written translation done by someone who knows the terminology, the context, the cultural aspect, and is a very good writer, which, in my opinion, AI is not. Now, let's dig into the heart of the matter, what I see as the key issues to think about here. Number one, do it yourself options for professional services are not anything new. If you are thinking that this is a new phenomenon, that you have software that does a similar task to a professional knowledge worker, as if all of this started with ChatGPT, it did not. Lots of professions work quite successfully alongside software that does some version of what the human professionals do. And I will admit, of course, sometimes the software does basically eliminate the professional. So if you think about travel agents, very few people these days would go to a travel agent for something really simple like booking a plane ticket. You would just do it yourself online. But in professions that require a high degree of knowledge or skill or creativity, I just don't think that that is the case. And I'll give you a couple examples. TurboTax, which is the primary do it yourself tax preparation software that is used in the US, came out in, anyone want to guess what year TurboTax was released? 1984. Even I, who am 54 years old now, was in 8th grade when TurboTax came out. And yet, accountants seem to be doing okay. QuickBooks, bookkeeping software, that was released in 1992. And in the US, we have a service called LegalZoom, and I'm sure others, that sell template legal documents if you want to do something like make your own will or sell your house yourself. That came out in 2001. Various website creation platforms like WordPress and Squarespace have been around since the early 2000s, but yet I would argue that these have in no way eliminated bookkeepers, attorneys, web designers. For example, I personally would never go back to doing my own taxes. The absolute first business task I outsourced, like when I had been freelancing for 2 years and could afford to hire, one person to do one thing, I hired an accountant and I'm never going back. And I think it is just true that lots of service providers do things you can do yourself if you have the time and the desire. For example, during COVID, I learned how to cut my own hair by watching YouTube videos. Many of my friends validated that it looked okay. It wasn't a disaster. But once COVID wound down, I went back to the hair salon because my hairdresser does a better job with less hassle. So I think the first data point I would give you is that in lots of professional services, we are hired to do things that people are not incapable of doing themselves. They either just don't want to or they don't have the time. Then there's the question of translation quality. This would require like a book, not just me writing a blog post or doing a podcast episode, to dissect the issue of AI generated translation quality. But here's what I would say because this is what I tell my clients. Number one, doing it yourself with an AI translation tool can actually be a decent option for a low stakes document that will be used in house for information only, where you're just sort of trying to tell, like, kind of, sort of, what does this say in our language? Like, we're looking at a bunch of request for proposals, RFP, and we want to compare the requirements and get a vague idea of what they want. Let's run it through DeepL. Number two, AI often sounds great when it is totally incorrect and it does wild stuff. One of my translation agency clients came to me because they quote unquote suspected that a translator had used machine translation without disclosing that. And here's what was the clue: there's a town in Switzerland of which the name is Aubonne, Aubonne. And the word bun in French is the feminine form of the adjective for good. The AI tool, sorry, I can't help but laugh here, had quote unquote translated that town name as oh good, Augood. So it not only saw this as something that needed to be translated, it translated part of the word. No kidding. Number three, raw AI output is a horrible idea for anything with a legal or reputation or brand risk or where terminology consistency is important. So I read a lot of AI generated translations into French because a lot of my interpreting clients use them for conference presentations. And it is quite common that you'll see things like the English word capital in the financial sense translated in three different ways on the same page or sometimes in the same document. At least what I don't know what AI tool they use, but for example, it will use the French terms capitaux propres, fonds propres, and capital all in the same paragraph. Or we had a situation recently where it used the same French word, financement, for two concepts in English that were meant to be contrasting. So it used the word financement for both the word financing, as in financed by a loan, and funding, as in financed by money from donors. So I'm sure other languages have those examples as well, and it sure is not what you want in your annual report. Then the issue is us. Many freelancers, in my opinion, have a deeper issue, which is that they're selling the wrong thing. Recently, someone commented on a LinkedIn post that I wrote, and here I'm paraphrasing. So many translators go on and on about how complicated and difficult their work is, when what they should really be selling is how much easier the client's life will be when they don't have to think about translation anymore. Bingo, 3 thumbs up. Clients want a good translation, right? You cannot be a nice person and a terrible translator and expect to retain high paying clients. But you can and should realize that most clients hire you to solve a problem that takes something off their to do list. So when you market to these higher paying clients, you want to emphasize things like peace of mind. Send it to me and you no longer have to worry about it. Risk reduction. You don't have to wonder what's in that AI generated translation. Trust and confidentiality. Your document is not going to be blasted out to 50 translators in a come and get it cattle call email. Confidence and reputation, the documents that you, the human, translate, can stand up to legal reputation and brand risks. AI cannot stand behind what it produced because it's not a human. Then there's the factor of what I would call getting clients out of the AI slop. In the past 6 months to a year, I have landed some new writing clients who hired me specifically to get them out of the AI slop. So, for example, ghostwriting articles for the CEO, writing the company newsletter, doing case studies and client interviews. I personally am a bit skeptical of people's claims or hopes that the pendulum is swinging away from AI. Sometimes in some ways, but I just think that there are too many clients whose priority is price and speed rather than trust and quality. I also think that there are lots and lots of clients who have specific tasks that they don't want to use AI for and that they are willing to pay quite well for an explicitly human touch. For example, to ghostwrite the CEO's LinkedIn or write the company newsletter. So I hope these tips are helpful if you too struggle with this idea of how do I market my services when clients could just do it themselves for free with AI. So again, I'm your host, Corinne McKay, and this has been episode 24 of the Training for Translators podcast. If you aren't on my mailing list, you should be, because if you like this podcast, I know for sure that you would enjoy my weekly newsletter. Hop on over to trainingfortranslators.com, and in the blog tab, you can subscribe in the sidebar of any blog post. The podcast is recorded and hosted by me, Corinne McKay, using a Shure MV7 Plus microphone, and it's hosted technologically on Libsyn, and I edit it in Audacity. Thanks, and I'll talk to you in a future episode.